Welcome once again. We are, as always, with Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes such places as Birch and Barley and Church Key in the district where we usually are. But we're on the road this time. This is the Majestic Cafe at the Evening Star Cafe in the Delray neighborhood of Alexandria. Glad to be here. Glad to see you again.
Absolutely.
What's on tap this week?
So, it's funny. This is another beer from Green Flash. I know we did Rayon Vert a little bit ago, but I kind of tell myself, if these guys keep coming out with new stuff that's just outstanding, we're going to keep talking about them. So this is a really awesome new beer, fittingly called Palate Wrecker. It's probably the most apropos beer name of all time, getting right to the nitty-gritty of it. It is, as we'd suspect, an Imperial IPA that is among one of the most bitter and intense experiences on your palate. However, it is, while very bitter, it's got this beautiful length of finish, and it's not astringent. It's really an incredible way that they've done this. It is something that was originally brewed for Hamilton's Tavern, a place in San Diego County in California near the brewery for their second anniversary. And I think they just realized that it was just so good that they had to give it to everybody. And so you'll see this limited draft and bottles occasionally here on the East Coast as well.
And I mean, we are the beneficiary of these anniversaries and special things with bars because a few weeks ago we were talking Flying Dog Wildeman,
that's right,
which was created for a bar in Amsterdam, but they had some left over, so we're lucky. Yeah,
they're being kind to us recently, I guess. But one of the cool things you'll see about Palate Wrecker, when you ask yourself, well, why is this more bitter than other Imperial IPAs? And the reason is they're hopping this beer from the get-go. And typically, beer gets started with its hopping regimen in the boil. But the boil is preceded by the mashing in of the grains, where you're going to pull the sugar out into the water, create the wort. And then you're going to lauter the beer, which is to begin to filter it. And the sparge is the final push through that's going to bring the wort to the kettle where you're going to boil. And that's when you start adding your hops. Now, in this case, they couldn't help themselves. They start adding hops in the mash, in the sparge. So you've got hopped wort far before it gets to the kettle. And then once it does, then they continue apace. Early for more bitterness, late for aromas, and things like that. And then during post-fermentation, in the conditioning phase, they're going to add more hops for the dry hop. So you literally have hops written all over this beer from start to finish.
Hophead's dream.
Yeah, pretty much.
They are always there. Well,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Really freshly hopped in the nose, yeah. And this is one of those beers that finish just goes on and on and on, but it's never really too intense. It's just like a very, very gradual but insistent bitterness.
The curve comes up and goes pretty fast.
But it stays, and it's got this wonderful aftertaste. And when you smell it, the coolest thing is when you can tell a beer is well hopped, heavily hopped, but with the artistry, when it smells like hops if you put them in your hand. I mean, literally, it smells like green hops in your hands in the beer. It's unbelievable.
When we started, I could smell it
boom.
From here.
I know, exactly.
And it's cloud.
It's crazy. It's got this beautiful, it comes at you first with this big green, floral, pungent intensity, and then this tropical fruit and the citrus notes of the hops as well. Pacific Northwest hops only, which are just absolutely fantastic. And actually, one interesting thing about the hop culture in America that I think is fascinating is we are blessed to have these really high alpha acid hops grown in, Willamette Valley, Yakima Valley, even in Idaho. And these, so when I say high alpha acid, it means it's got tons and tons of bitterness, but also tons of flavor, right? And we associate them rightfully with the American craft brewing scene. However, it was the macro brewers that developed these hops, because way back when they wanted people to develop hops that had a lot more bitterness so they could use less of them. It'd be like cheaper. If you had a certain amount of hops, it could give you a ton more bitterness, and obviously their beers aren't that bitter, but those big macro lagers actually started developing these huge hops, and lucky for us, so that when the Pacific Northwest and Northern Californian brewers started, those were the hops they could get. And they were psyched to have them, and they added a lot in because they were looking for that intense flavor.
Props to the big guys.
That's right, yeah, they helped us out.
And you mention this a lot, a challenge with bitter beer for the food pairing.
Yeah, I mean, I know people keep trying to argue with me, but I'm telling you, I would stay away from it with anything that's spicy because it's going to light it up in your mouth, definitely. And again, you just got to go for that richness, that protein richness. You get the cutting effect going. So, think of like really big, rich cheeses. But of course, big meat anything on a rotisserie is going to do well with this, and it's going to be really great with it. One thing I will say, though, is, I actually recently have really enjoyed hoppy beers with chocolate, but with like really dark, bitter chocolate, because you get the link up of the bitterness. And then think about it, tropical fruit and chocolate go hand in hand. So the notes of the hop. So try it out. I think it's really cool. Get a really nice piece of chocolate that's really bitter and dark and extreme with an Imperial IPA, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
And you can do that. You can do a whole course tasting at home.
Yeah, exactly.
With a variety.
Yeah, we're
of
used to
beers.
doing that with cheeses, but try it with chocolates. Do it with gourmet cheese, gourmet chocolate, charcuterie. I've done that with Red Apron, Nathan Anda. He actually makes all the charcuterie in our company. We've done it together, and it's amazing to see how well beers go with charcuterie in addition to chocolate, cheese, and most everything else.
Now, when we talked about Rayon Vert a few weeks back, you talked about the bottle. This looks similar.
Yeah, it does.
It's a little more stout.
Yeah, it is a little bit stout. As with anything, it's the green flash character. You identify this bottle, you see it, you're like, that's green flash, which is what they want. And it's a great bottle to have. They use it across the board, but it's really great for something like Rayon Vert because it's actually reinforced. Rayon Vert is re-fermented in the bottle, so if it got too hot in there, it might, CO2 production might kind of push. So they use this reinforced bottle, which is great to hold it in, but it's a great bottle for all their beers.
And before we go, on that note, talking about bottles versus cans, green versus brown versus clear glass, what's the best way to store, say, a 6-pack of beer in a bottle? Somewhere cool and dark?
Well, yeah, I would say that, first off, if it's hoppy, or if it's refreshing and crisp like Pilsners and Pale Lagers, do not ever think even remotely about aging it. So you get it, drink it as fast as you possibly can, drink it fresh, because that's where you get all this great hop aromatics, stuff like that. Now, it is important, though, that if you get it, you're going to want to buy it cold, preferably, and hope that it's been kept cold the entire time, because fluctuation of temp can heat up the beer inside, but also it can cause the cap to kind of go in and out, and then you could get oxidation and things like that. But you get this, get it home, get it in your fridge, and drink it as quickly as possible, which is typically not a problem. On the other hand, if it's something that is going to be ageable, yes, completely dark. You're going to want it in a cool place, not too hot, but not too cold. And the darkness is a really huge factor, because, and it's a reason why brown bottles are the best, and why kegs and cans are even better, is because UV rays will literally skunk your beer. And so you have to be careful of that. Green bottle beers, you got to be careful of, because they're going to let the light in and clear, obviously, as well. So, buy brown bottles, I think, for your hoppy beers are really great.
You should not have any hop slam left in your refrigerator.
Right. No, and that's
I'm
actually
not admitting if I do or not.
Well, if you do, it's going to be okay for a while. But you don't want to be 9 months from now being like, I still have one bottle left. It's just. And it won't be bad. It won't be bad at all. It's just not going to be what it could have been. So drink that as soon as you can.
All right, Greg Engert, thank you as always. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Remember to please drink responsibly and bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.